My name is Elowen Vance Sterling, and I am 104 years old. After more than a century of living, I've watched the world change in ways most people can barely imagine. I've seen families grow, cities transform, and entire generations come and go. But among all the decisions I've made in my long life, there is one choice I deeply regret. Moving into a nursing home, at the time, it felt like the responsible thing to do. My family reassured me that it would be safer, more comfortable, and easier for everyone. And for a moment, I believed that too. But once I moved in, I slowly discovered that life inside a nursing home was very different from what I had imagined. Today, I want to share 6 things I wish someone had told me before I made that decision. Because moving into a nursing home isn't just about changing where you live. It quietly changes how you live, how you think, and sometimes even who you become. If you or someone you love is considering this path, stay with me until the end. Some of these lessons may surprise you. One of the first things I didn't expect was how quickly I would lose my sense of purpose. Before moving into the nursing home, my days had meaning. Even the small routines mattered. Watering my plants in the morning, making my own coffee, tidying my living space. These simple tasks gave structure to my life. But once I moved into the facility, those rituals disappeared. Meals were prepared for me. Cleaning was done by staff. Even the plants weren't mine to take care of anymore. At first, it felt like a vacation from responsibility. But after a few weeks, something strange happened. The days started to feel empty. I saw the same thing happening to others. There was a man named George, a carpenter who had spent his entire life building things with his hands. But in the nursing home, there were no tools, no projects, nothing for him to create. One afternoon, he looked at his hands and quietly said, "I feel useless." And in that moment, I understood exactly what he meant, because when purpose disappears, something inside you slowly begins to fade. And when purpose begins to disappear, something else often follows. A quiet realization that your life is no longer fully in your control. The second thing that shocked me was how quickly I lost my independence. Before moving in, I had my own rhythm. I decided when to wake up, when to eat, when to take a walk. But inside the nursing home, everything ran on a schedule that wasn't mine. Breakfast at a fixed hour, lights out at a fixed hour, activities planned whether you wanted them or not. Even something as simple as going outside sometimes required permission. One morning during my first week there, I woke up and instinctively reached for the book I'd been reading at home. And suddenly it hit me. This wasn't my home. The room felt unfamiliar. The furniture wasn't mine. The small comforts I had spent decades collecting were gone. That was the moment I realized something painful. I had quietly given up control over my own life. But losing independence wasn't the only change. Something else began happening slowly, almost invisibly. Before moving into the nursing home, I was doing fairly well for my age. I could still walk around my home, cook my meals, stay active in small ways throughout the day. But once I moved in, life became too easy. Meals were brought to me. If I needed something, I pressed a button. Little by little, I moved less. My legs became weaker. Standing up felt harder. The muscles I had spent years maintaining disappeared faster than I expected. And I wasn't the only one. I watched residents arrive walking confidently on their own 2 feet. Months later, they were using walkers, then wheelchairs. The less we used our bodies, the weaker they became. Movement isn't just exercise. For older bodies, movement is survival. But physical changes were only part of the story. There was another loss I hadn't expected. When I first moved into the nursing home, my family visited often. My daughter came every week. My grandchildren visited on weekends. And for a while, I still felt connected to my old life. But over time, the visits became less frequent. My daughter started calling instead of coming. My grandchildren became busy with school and work. And suddenly, weeks would pass without anyone walking through the door. It wasn't because they stopped loving me. Life simply moved forward. And when you are no longer part of everyday life, it becomes easier than people realize to fade into the background. Out of sight often becomes out of mind. But loneliness wasn't the only emotional challenge waiting there. There was another change that surprised me even more. Privacy is something we rarely think about until it disappears. At home, I could close my door whenever I wanted. I could enjoy silence. But inside the nursing home, privacy became rare. Staff members entered rooms frequently. Routine checks happened throughout the day. Even simple activities sometimes required assistance, and accepting help for tasks you've done independently. Your entire life is not easy. Little by little, you start feeling less like a person and more like a patient. That quiet loss of dignity is something few people talk about. But perhaps the most surprising lesson came much later, and it was something no one warned me about before I moved in. When I first arrived, I told myself the move was temporary. I thought I could try it for a while and return home if I didn't like it. But reality turned out very different. My house sat empty. My family began selling things they believed I wouldn't need anymore. And after months of living in a place where everything was done for me, my independence had already begun fading. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to go back to the life you once had. Many people enter believing they still have options, but for many, the nursing home quietly becomes permanent. Looking back across my 104 years of life, I don't regret growing older, but I do regret believing that a nursing home was my only option. I walked in expecting comfort and security. Instead, I slowly lost pieces of my independence, purpose, and identity. That doesn't mean nursing homes are always wrong. Some people truly need that level of care. But before making that decision, it's important to understand what you may be giving up. Because independence, dignity, purpose. These things become more valuable the older you get. And once they disappear, they're very difficult to reclaim. If you're facing this choice, ask yourself one honest question: is this truly the best decision for my life? Or is it simply the easiest one right now? If this story made you think, I would love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and share your perspective. And if you want to hear more lessons from someone who has lived 104 years, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join me again in the next video. This is Elowen Vance Sterling, still here, still learning, and still sharing what a century of life has taught me.